Okay, so I think it's a bit interesting because in my case, I wouldn't say that I grew up knowing that I'll be involved in sciences. So a lot of it really was reward for the performance. So over the years, if there's a recognition that you perform well in a particular subject area, then the system kind of encourages you to develop in that area. So in my case, I would say that it's kind of the supportive structures of the different schools I attended that gradually channeled me towards sciences. So the teachers and the mentors within the school settings recognize these particular talents, and then the encouragement and the nurturing is given in that setting to ensure that the identified talents are nurtured and followed through to the next levels. But it's kind of interesting, even when it got to joining the high school where we had to select the particular subject areas. Even when I felt that I was not capable of doing the sciences, the school actually insisted that you either do the sciences or you do not have a place in this system because we think you're capable. So I think for me, I really value the system of training where the teachers recognize the talents and then they nurture those talents and they encourage the different individuals to participate in the talents. And it's kind of interesting because at that stage there were no gender specific distinctions. So if you're in a girls' school, basically all of you are girls. So it's difficult to then say this school that is predominantly a female school, you cannot do the sciences. So the teachers in that setting were kind of balanced because the population they had were really a population of girls. And then the mentorship is given globally, but largely driven by the talents they identify. So I think the in the earlier parts of my career, I wouldn't say I encountered any challenges. And I think that's largely dependent on the systems where we find ourselves. In East Africa, there's not much of a gender difference. Of course, at some point, the females were given additional points to ensure that they meet their qualifications for the university. But I think beyond that perceived advantage for the females, there's been not much of a gender specific distinction between what you would do or what you're capable of doing. But subsequently, as we get older and then get into family commitments, I think then the gender disparities in terms of the challenges faced are tougher. So when you do have a child or children, it becomes tougher for you to take on some roles or for you to work extended hours that sometimes our male colleagues are capable of doing. So largely, I think the challenges become a bigger issue when you do have a family. But I think in the East African settings, for the young female scientists before the family responsibilities come up, I think the situation is fairly balanced, and the opportunities seem to be the same for both males and females. But when the family does come in, then the challenges become a little more for the females, particularly in terms of time management, time allocation to the family versus whatever would be expected of you as a scientist. Well, yes, I think I would agree. I have been particularly blessed by having a very supportive family. And I mean, I keep saying this many times. Sometimes when I'm not able to pick a child from school, even my father, as the grandfather, would chip in and do that. So I think that the family and the support structure in the African context cannot be overemphasized. However, I think that's also not global. I know that there are situations where the female scientist actually does not necessarily have this support structure. But overall, I think it's a bit of an advantage in the settings in that we have a fairly extended family with everyone willing to chip in here and there to provide support for caretaking for the children or for any other responsibilities that the female scientists may have to have done on their own. So yeah, I agree that maybe there's that bit of advantage on the African continent, but it's not global. I wouldn't generalize it across every female scientist. Yes, I mean, I think it definitely does affect their choices. And I think one of the main things that people may fear taking risks is the perception that the society would have about this mother who is constantly leaving their children in the care of others. So indeed, even in the presence of that kind of support, there's a lot of societal pressure that may affect decision making or may affect the individuals I mean, in terms of the kind of risks that are taken. And that does hold back female scientists, I should say. I would say yes, but I think it largely depends on the setting. So I speak from having had two perspectives. So, I mean, I've worked in East Africa, particularly in Uganda before, and now for the past 5 years, I've worked in the Gambia. And the two scenarios are very different. And I tell my colleagues back home that my awareness of the fact that I'm a woman actually came out in the Gambia. In Uganda, we all work and we are colleagues. There's never a distinction between a female and a male colleague that is out there in your face. But I think it definitely does work, and I would say it's not that much in Uganda, where we have a lot of females advancing in their careers, even in the context where there are very many male competitors. But I would believe that in other parts of Africa, there's still this passing over females and promoting males just because of gender balances. So I believe it does happen. I mean, I think overall I would consider two aspects, and those two aspects I would really draw from my personal experience. One of them is identifying mentorship, and that's why I quickly said yes about this opportunity, because if I look back, most of my achievements I have achieved because I have had strategic mentorship and support. So on your own, it's very difficult. But if you do identify strategic mentorship relationships, and I mean, these do not necessarily have to be people you know, but reach out from people who have succeeded in the area of interest that you may have, and ensure that at least there's mentorship. So one critical thing is mentorship. We cannot underestimate the impact of mentorship on career profiles for both males and females, but particularly for females, it's quite critical. And then the other aspect is identify what your social support structure is. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be the family, but the family is a key social support structure, family and friends, because there is a critical need to ensure that when there's one disappointment is in one area, you have a fallback social support structure. So I really think that it's mentorship and ensuring that you have a very strong social support structure that will be able to fill in the gaps and support you, because a lot of support is needed along this journey really to excellence. Yeah.